Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on the Inside Winston Cup Racing. I'm at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, the site of Jeff Gordon's first victory, the Coca-Cola 600 back in May. He got his second in the Brickyard 400 last weekend at Indianapolis, Indiana. Well, he'll be going for his third this afternoon in the Bud at the Glen at Watkins Glen, New York. Let's join Bill Weber in our studios in Charlotte, North Carolina for a pre-race report of the Bud at the Glen. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Ned. Hello again, everybody. Race morning at the Glen with Mark Martin sitting on the pole. Now, coming up, we'll recap a busy week of business in the Winston Cup Series, continue our conversation with car owner Richard Childress, and we'll take you to NASCAR World. All just ahead on the morning edition of IWCR for Sunday, August 14th. Today's show is brought to you by Super 8 Motels with over 1,000 locations nationwide. Life's great at Super 8. Texaco Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. Miller Genuine Draft. Get out of the old, get into the cold. And by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? Watkins Glen is where Mark Martin lit the fuse for an explosive winning streak last summer. After capturing the Bud at the Glen, his Valvoline Ford scorched the field the next 3 weeks, tying the modern-day record of 4 straight wins. Mark would like to rekindle that fire today. He's on the pole. Randy Pemberton has our pre-race report. This segment of IWCR is brought to you by Texaco Haviland Formula 3. Add more life to your car.
Well, Bill, as you can see, the bottom dropped out here on Saturday afternoon at Watkins Glen, raining out second round of qualifying. That hurt a couple of the competitors, a couple of the young guys. Mike Wallace, who blew an engine in practice prior to first round of qualifying, was not able to get another run in, and he did not make the show. Likewise for Jeremy Mayfield, failed to make the show for the first time all year for the Cale Yarborough Motorsports team. Now, in qualifying on Friday, it was a beautiful day, a great run for Mark Martin. Very first car out on the track in the Valvoline Ford. Not a track record, but he ran at about 118.326 miles per hour. Mark Martin on the pole. Several guys took a shot at him. Kenny Schrader came closest. He qualified on the outside of row 1. Now, one guy that never had an opportunity to even get a qualifying run in or a lap in practice, for that matter, John Andretti. Seems the Hagen team has run out of money. They're still seeking sponsorship for the 1994 season, leaving John Andretti to search for a ride.
He's going to continue to try and run as sponsorship becomes available. And, you know, he's going to try and keep going, I guess, next year, too. In the meantime, I'm looking at different options and what's available for me this year and into next year. You know, it's just too bad that we put so much together and it to end like this, but it's not over for either one of us yet.
So where will John Andretti end up? Well, there's a lot of possibilities, including the STP Pontiac, owned by Richard Petty, because up here, this is the last race for Wally Dallenbach Jr. in the STP Pontiac.
I'm going to work on some things pretty hard, so I don't know where I'll be the next couple of weeks, but I do not want to leave Winston Cup racing. This is where I want to stay, and the things that I'm working on are Winston Cup. So, you know, I want to be here. I want to be here. I want to be able to run up front, and you know, we're all competitive, and I just, like I said, we're just going to kind of wait till the smoke clears and see what happens. But I'm going to be working on things pretty hard, but I definitely want to stay in Winston Cup.
A few other shakeups up here as well. Derek Cope has moved over to replace Tim Steele in the Bobby Allison Motorsports machine. Silly season really cooking up here in Watkins Glen. Coming along with Derek Cope, Ron Zook, the owner of his Busch Grand National car.
You know, when I got the call, you know, I sat down with Jimmy Finnegan and Bobby and Keith, and we talked a lot about things first, but the report's been real good so far. So, you know, I feel good about it, and, you know, I feel like that I can bring a lot, you know, as far as my job outside the race car. You know, if we acquire a sponsor, or I can help, you know, initiate some talks there, I feel like that we can get a sponsor and keep a sponsor and keep them happy, and hopefully both in and out of the race car.
Also in a press conference here on Saturday afternoon, the MRN announcer Dick Brooks, former Winston Cup driver, has purchased 50% of Sabco Racing, the number 40 car, not the 42 car, but the 40 car of Bobby Hamilton. Seems that relationship will start in 1995. If you're wondering about Jimmy Spencer, the McDonald's Ford driver, still suffering from a broken shoulder blade that he suffered last weekend at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in his crash in the Brickyard 400. Spencer will not turn the wheel here at Watkins Glen. He's being replaced by Tommy Kendall.
I was really excited about coming here. I ran third in this race last year, and We just didn't have the qualifying run we wanted, so we're starting a little bit further back than we like. But, you know, Tommy's an excellent road racer, and I feel confident he'll put the car up in the top 10. That's all we want.
In closing up here from Watkins Glen, if you're wondering how the Brett Bodine and Jeff Bodine saga is, well, it continues. They had a family reunion here at Watkins Glen. We don't know if they're still talking to each other, but they are starting right next to each other here for the Bud at the Glen, 15th and 16th. Brett will start 15th. Jeff will start in the 16th position. As far as the weather goes up here, does not look all that good. Forecast for the race, 80% chance of rain. Bill, back to you.
Thanks, Randy. Now a look at the Super 8 Top 8 qualifiers. Mark Martin and Ken Schrader make up a front row that hasn't won a race this season. Schrader hasn't been to victory lane in 96 races, a streak he'd like to snap today. Jeff Gordon, fresh from the win at Indy, has the DuPont Chevy third next to Ernie's Haviland Ford. Rusty Wallace qualified the Miller Genuine Draft Ford fifth next to point leader Dale Earnhardt's Goodwrench Chevy. The tied Ford of Ricky Rudd is seventh and Bill Elliott is eighth. Wally Dullenbach and Terry Labonte round out the top 10. As Randy mentioned, the weather forecast is not good. It started raining early last night, stopped about an hour ago, and the forecast is calling for severe thunder showers with possible high winds, the high temperature around 70 degrees. The Busch Series is off this weekend. They'll race again this coming Saturday at Michigan. Rain or shine, we'll be here at 8 Eastern time this evening for a wrap-up on the day from Watkins Glen. Just ahead, our conversation with car owner Richard Childress and a look at NASCAR World. First, the rest of the starting grid for the Bud at the Glen. Mike Wallace, Loy Allen Jr., and Jeremy Mayfield failed to qualify for today's race.
We have moved into victory lane here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, which we feel is appropriate for this part of the program. Last week, we did part one of an interview with car owner Richard Childress, who owns the Goodwrench Chevrolets, which Dale Earnhardt drives in the NASCAR Winston Cup Series, and certainly they've been in this victory lane a number of times. Last week, Richard talked about his transition from being a driver to car owner. This week, he talks about his team and his driver. Bill Weber has the story.
Yeah, each year we set goals that we want to try to reach, and our number one goal is to be the Winston Cup champions. And you know, we're working awful hard this year. We're still in a good striking position to the 28. The 6 team is a very strong race team with Jack Roush and Mark Martin. You've also got Rusty Wallace in there. It's a lot of teams. You can't count anyone out at this point of the season.
Heading to Watkins Glen, Richard Childress and his talented team have reassumed a narrow lead in the challenging race to the prestigious championship. Together, the Childress-Earnhardt combination has produced more than 50 wins since 1984 and won 5 titles. And while there is history in their future, there is certainly glory in their past. Childress was only 5 when his father died, so he learned his work ethic at an early age. Today, all the success of Richard's racing team is deeply rooted in its people and their pride.
I think it's a lot of things. You know, I think the key to success in anything or any business or anything is people. And Dale and I have been blessed by having some of the greatest people in the sport working for us. And as far as our relationship with both, you know, we came up pretty tough and pretty hard. And, you know, we know what it was like to not have what everybody else had when you was a kid coming up. And, you know, now it just gave both of us a driving force together. And I think it's been great for both of us, but I think the key goes back to the people that we've been able to surround ourselves with. Dale's a great race driver, and you know, I've been very fortunate to have a race driver like Dale Earnhardt, but I've been awful fortunate to put myself with the caliber of people that work for this race team.
As the race for the Winston Cup Championship charges toward November, Childress and Earnhardt will once again be tabbed as favorites for the title. Down the stretch, experience is an advantage.
We've lost championships by 12 points. You know, we've been in each condition. We've won them by a few and we've lost them by a few. And so I think that gives us, if anyone's got an advantage, we know what it is to lose and what it is to win. So, you know, you prepare yourself to win every time you get there, but it's not the end of the world if you don't.
Childress certainly doesn't take a casual approach toward winning, simply a realistic one. He was a winless driver in a low-dollar ride. Today he has a talented team on his side, General Motors on his hood, and perhaps the greatest driver in racing history in his car.
I think his determination to win at everything he does, if it's from business or whatever he and I is doing, if we're just kidding around together, he wants to be the best, and I think his competitive drive puts Dale Earnhardt apart from a lot of the other race drivers. I think when it gets down and you're getting beat up pretty hard on the racetrack and you're tired, you're running third, fourth, fifth, you may even be a lap down or whatever the condition, he still has an inner drive in him to win at no matter what conditions. We've been 5 laps down and came back. We've been 3 laps. And I think that's what makes Dale a little different than a lot of the race car drivers out there today, is when all the odds are against him, he never gives up inside.
Earnhardt's racing success has erupted into unequaled appeal off the track. His souvenirs sell, his time is in demand, and his popularity continues to soar.
When you're at a racetrack and the people gather so much around the back of our truck just waiting to see him or touch him or talk to him, and he and I'll go do an autograph session, or he'll go most of the time without us, but when I'm there, I'm just amazed at 2,000 or 3,000 people lined up in the rain or whatever it is to get it. And I made this statement to someone in the past. I said, someday people will look back and say, I just wish I could have met Dale Earnhardt. And I think that's the way he'll be remembered. He's going to be that big in motorsports.
Richard Childress stands at the top of the racing world, watching his team challenge for another chance at the championship. All the work has been rewarding, but for Richard, there's one additional element that's made it all worthwhile. It's been fun.
Life's too short not to have fun. You spend a third of your time working, and a third of it sleeping, and the other third, who knows. But so you might as well spend it doing something you enjoy, and that's the way I want all the people working with me and being involved with me on anything to enjoy what they're doing.
Thanks, Richard. One thing I feel that has helped that team be so strong over the years is the fact that they haven't had much turnover in personnel. Still to come on this edition of Inside Winston Cup Racing, we'll have the mailbox and also take a look at NASCAR World. Stay with us. The IWCR voicemail box is brought to you by Miller Genuine Draft.
If not knowing exactly what the car is going to do or what setup to put on the car for Sunday's race, is it easier to work with a loose car or is it easier to start out with a tight car? Thank you very much.
Well, hi, Ed. I'm Ray Evernham, the chassis consultant and crew chief on the Hendrick Motorsports number 24. And in our instance, it's better to start out with a loose car. Our driver likes to drive a loose car, and we found that working with the new radial tires and the aerodynamic setups on the Chevrolet Lumina, that when the car is tight, we can never get that out of it. But when the car is loose, even though we go slower at first, it's easier for us to get the car balanced if it starts loose and we have to go towards tight. We've been very unsuccessful in getting the car to free up once we've started the race with it too tight.
Questions for the voicemail box are recorded on the Finishing Positions hotline. Remember, for up-to-the-minute Winston Cup pole qualifying results, race results, and point standings, or to record your question, call 1-900-73-RACES. Only 89 cents per minute, average call 2 minutes for mailbox or 3 minutes for results. 1-900-73-RACES. If we use your question on the air, you'll receive this embroidered Miller Genuine Draft jacket.
Still to come on this edition of Inside Winston Cup Racing, a look at NASCAR World. As we leave you for this break, here's a look at what's coming up right here next week on IWCR.
Next Sunday, the Winston Cup Series returns to Michigan International Speedway. Rusty Wallace won there earlier this year. We'll have the pre- and post-race reports from the Goodwrench 400. And we'll talk with former Winston Cup champion Terry Labonte. His win in North Wilkesboro is just part of what's been a successful 1994 season. The official conversion van of Inside Winston Cup Racing is Gladiator from Glavelle, America's #1 luxury van. Lavelle, the way we put it together sets us apart.
NASCAR World debuted this past weekend in Indianapolis, Indiana. It's a concept where fans can go and get a full treat of what goes on in NASCAR Winston Cup racing. They can actually participate in many phases of the sport, so we took our cameras there to let you on the inside of what goes on in NASCAR World.
Last weekend was a new experience for competitors and fans as they participated in the debut of NASCAR stock car racing at the famed Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And when not at the racetrack, both competitors and fans could be found having fun at NASCAR World.
Wallace grabs the lead into the corner. Now he slides wide. Here's Earnhardt back to the bottom of turn 4. It's a patented move, Earnhardt.
A 10-acre theme park, NASCAR World was designed to deliver NASCAR stock car racing up close and in person. Over 70,000 fans tripped the turnstiles in hopes of getting a closer look at the exciting world of Winston Cup racing.
And you've wondered, what do they look like inside? Okay, do it today. Come right on in.
NASCAR World is a 10-acre mobile theme park that's going to travel the Winston Cup circuit. We're real excited. We think it's great for young fans. We think it's great for families. It's a place where people get behind the scenes of NASCAR. You can go to the pits, you can drive a simulator, you can call the finish of a race and take it home for you, all for one price. We think it's great in an exciting place. NASCAR World's about having fun with families.
Among the activities at NASCAR World were trade shows where you could buy everything from prints, posters, and pins of your favorite drivers and teams, or have your own picture taken at the Dream Card display. If you can't do it in real life, you can always dream about it. NASCAR World brings you from the grandstand to the garage. One of the demonstrations shows you the do's and don'ts when trying to get a car through inspection at a real NASCAR race, complete with 2 NASCAR inspectors.
At the rear of the car using at least 6 1/4 inch bolts. We can see that this one has 8, so he's well within the legal limit.
One of the most popular exhibits here at NASCAR World is one that you, the fan, can actually participate in. You can fuel, jack, and change tires on a Winston Cup car. And let me tell you, it is a real good time. Thanks to Busch Series Championship challenger Hermie Sadler, who was making a personal appearance at NASCAR World, I was put on the spot to help perform a pit stop. Let's see, I've been to a couple of 100 races in my day, watched thousands of pit stops. My brother Robin has changed tires for over 15 years on the circuit. How tough could it be? I tried once, couldn't even get the tire off. The second time, I couldn't get the second tire on. And the third time, well, I was just flat tired.
That is hard.
Well, first of all, I'm glad you're my friend because I know you'd never hire me, but that was a lot of fun even though I couldn't do it.
You know, you always wonder how it is to do a pit stop, and those guys don't get any credit for what they do and get those guys out there. And it's getting away now. A lot of the races won, Winston Cup and Busch even, won in and out of the pits. And you and I got a long ways to go before we start doing on a pit crew, but it's a lot of fun and it makes you appreciate what those guys do.
After showing my tire changing abilities, I thought maybe I'd give a shot at calling a Winston Cup race. But then again, I'm not going to be shown up by any 10-year-old.
And they touch again. Spencer comes down and wins the Pepsi 400. His first career Winston Cup win.
Have you ever dreamed of calling a race or anything like that?
Not really.
No? You did an excellent job. Was it fun?
Yeah.
What's the best part about it, you think?
Calling the win with a close race in there. That was exciting.
NASCAR World has it all. There are television shows with your favorite drivers, art displays, all kinds of rides, 26 show cars, along with NASCAR chassis and engines. NASCAR World is a powerful presentation.
Fans, the kids, it's also, we think, going to build a new audience for us. People who may not come out and spend the money for an event right out of the box, but might come here for a lot less ticket price, take a look and see just how fun, just how much action the sport has to offer, and we think that's terrific.
From the early days on the beaches of Daytona to the modern day men and machines that make weekends in America exciting, NASCAR World is a place you won't want to miss. Next stop on the schedule is Atlanta, the final race of the season.
And maybe I ought to go back to NASCAR World and brush up on announcing a race. Well, our time's up for today. Hope you enjoyed the show. We're off to Michigan, where the Busch cars and the Winston Cup cars run next weekend. You join us again here on TNN for more on Inside Winston Cup Racing. So long.
Today's show has been brought to you by Texaco Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. Miller Genuine Draft. Get out of the old. Get into the cold. And by Ford and your Ford dealers. Have you driven a Ford lately? Footwear provided by Simpson Race Products, makers of the Ground Effects line of motorsports footwear. For order information or a new catalog, call 1-800-654-RACE. Communications for IWCR are provided by Racing Radios, the official communications of NASCAR and the Winston Cup Series.